Hi guys, Tamara Darcy from Work Inc. We are working on a Zoom class today, and the Zoom class that what we're going to be talking about today is our circle of influence where it pertains to work. So you're going to see the circle a whole bunch, but today it's all talking about people and things that we have control of. One of the things that we talk about a lot is the only person you can control is you. That's something really to keep in the back of your mind when you're trying to figure out what goes into what slot. So, each of these categories, we have the green circle that is talking about things that are within my control, things that I can touch and do and change and make a difference on what happens with the outcome of that. So, an example is if I'm cooking dinner and I don't time my stuff out right, things aren't going to come out at the right time. So I can control when I put the chicken in. I can control when I put the vegetable in. I can control when I put the potatoes in and make sure they all come out at the same time. I'm in control of that. So that's what that's talking about. Things that are within my control are things that maybe you need some help with. So, like transportation. If you need to go to the store to buy the chicken to get your meal together, you need to make arrangements to get there and get back. So you need to work with somebody and the two of you come up with how that's going to happen. So you're helping make this happen. It's still partially within your control, but it depends on whatever that other person's schedule is when you're going to go. So it may not completely be your way, but you still have some control over how the outcome comes out. The last circle is you don't get to control this. These are things that you just can't do anything to change. And this is something really important for us to understand so we learn how to deal with them. One thing I really want you to notice is the size of the circles. So we've got this small little green circle that are the things that we can control, which is not very big. And then it opens up a little bit to the next section, and you have more control over this section, and it's a bigger group of things that you have that influence on. The things that are out of your control, that's big. And that's why we need to work on how to deal with those things that are out of our control. Bunch of things that have to do with work that I came up with. I know you guys are going to be able to come up with a lot more. But if we talked about how I dress, how I'm dressing for work, how I decided to put my clothes on and do my hair, and am I doing makeup, am I taking a shower, all of those things, are they out of my control? No. Are they within my control? Yes. But really, if there's one spot to put that, it's here. You are in charge of how you dress, how you look, whether you take a shower. This is all under your control. So this is something that you absolutely have control over. So we want to put dress. And you know my handwriting's horrible and my spelling's horrible, so you need to bear with me. The weather. Do we have any control over the weather? Not yet. Not yet. We're still working on it, but I think God's got that one, and we really can't control the weather, so it's something that we need to take into consideration when we're getting ready for work. Look at the weather report. Yesterday, it didn't say anything about raining all night, but it's rain and not snow. If you know it's going to snow the day that you're going to work, you need to make sure that you're up early because you can't control the weather. You don't know what's going to happen with it. We kind of can predict it, but not completely. So you want to make sure that you give yourself enough time to make those adjustments. So weather is out of our control. Who's hiring? So when you're looking for a job and you want to work at Walmart and you want to work in the bakery department only cooking, are you in control of whether or not they have a position available? No. What you can control with that is finding out multiple areas that are hiring in that area. Maybe it's not Walmart in their bakery. Maybe it's in a bakery. Maybe it's in another industry. But who is actually hiring at this time, you do not have control over. So I'm going to put hiring. So that's not in our control. Our attitude. Who's in control of our attitude? You, all the time. You are always able to control your attitude. Sometimes things may get out of control, but it's up to you to do what you need to do to fix that. If you need to take a time out, if you need to talk to somebody, if you need to have a few minutes just to take some deep breaths. We talked about some of our exercises with clenching your hands and letting them go. Some of those key phrases that we say all the time, if people are saying things that aren't very nice to us, like you might be right. You need to understand that your attitude is absolutely within your control, always. And it's not up to somebody else to control your attitude. You might be having a bad day, but what is coming out of your mouth and what perception you're giving to other people is completely on you, whether or not they have a bad attitude. If they have a bad attitude, that's on them, not on you. So transportation, we talked about that a little bit. Are you in control of the transportation? If you're not actually driving, no, we're not. Can you influence it? Yes. If you make sure you know the bus schedule, and if the bus isn't running for whatever reason, maybe the bus broke down. If you have a backup plan so that you have somebody else, a neighbor or a friend that can give you a ride in an emergency, then you're controlling that situation. So that's something you have some influence over, but if you're not the one driving the car, you don't have complete control over that situation. Oh, and the thing to remember with transportation, even if you're driving the car, my car breaks down. I get up in the morning and I have to shovel out my car. Okay, those are things that go with transportation. Even though I'm driving, were a surprise. What if I get behind a school bus on my way to work? And this is one of the things we talk about a lot, that if you're scheduled at 11 o'clock, your time to show up at work is 10:45. You always give yourself that 15 minutes of leeway so that you can always be on time for work. That is really, really important. That 15 minutes, you're not getting paid for it, but that's your transition time. That's your time to get ready for work. And that way, if you get stuck behind that school bus, then you don't have to stress on your way to work. We don't want you stressed out when you get there, because then you have to adjust your attitude. So this is really, really, really important always. What jobs are available? Do we have any control over what jobs are available at this time? No, not at all. Whatever is right now with COVID, hospitality jobs, there's none. But driving jobs, there's a ton. So different situations create different jobs. Do we have control over when those jobs are available? The only time that that's an exception is around Christmas time, when they're hiring for temporary help, because that's something that kind of shows up every year. Okay, I know if I want to work at Michael's during that Christmas time, they're always going to be hiring extra people for that particular time. It's a temporary job, but that's one little spot that you kind of have some control over. So what is that one? Jobs available. That's not spelled right, but you know what I mean. How about the schedule, your work schedule? Do you have control over that? Somewhat. Again, that's one of those that kind of falls in here. If you're working, we're working at Walmart today. If you're working for Walmart, they need people to fill certain slots. If you'd prefer not to work on the weekend, you're probably going to have to work on the weekend. If that's what they require, that you work one day on the weekend, you don't have control over that. But if you say, okay, I'd like to have every other Tuesday off, if that works for you, so that I have one day in the schedule that I know I'll be off. Can that be worked out? Absolutely. And this is where that conversation with your managers, your job coach, your parents, these people that can help you navigate that, and having these conversations with your boss are really important, or whoever's writing the schedule. That's a biggie. But you got to give them plenty of time. If you're scheduled tomorrow to come in and you just don't feel like going to work, guess what? You got to suck it up and go to work. Just that's the rule. Schedule. Hygiene. We talked about that a little bit with dressing. Can you control your hygiene? Absolutely. Who's the only person that can control this? You. 100%. Your parents can yell at you. Your grandma can yell at you. Your coworkers can say, you kind of, maybe you should take a shower. You are the only one that is controlling, taking care of yourself. If you are clean, tidy, neat, that's going to help you with your attitude and your relationship with other people. It's very, very important, especially if you're working in the food service. This goes for haircuts and things too. Why? Oh my goodness, I always spell this wrong. Gine. I think there's another I in there. Now, hygiene with your coworkers. Can you control that? We just answered that question. You are in control of your hygiene. Can you mention to them that, maybe it would be, is there something that we can do to help you keep your uniform cleaner? Do you need to go to the laundromat? What can we do to help you? You can absolutely say that, but it's up to them to do it. And your hygiene, like I said before, it is showering, it is shaving, it is having your hair combed and neat, your uniform clean and pressed. Your shoes clean. If you're working in a restaurant, your shoes get disgusting. It's up to you to make sure they're clean and that you clean them out and spray some stuff in it so you don't have nasty feet smell, because that's just gross. So working with your coworkers, their attitude, can you change their attitude? You might be able to influence it a little bit, but who is the person that's in charge of yourself? You. So it's up to them to change their attitude. If you're going in and you're being positive to them and they're coming back being negative, it's up to them to change their attitude. How you respond to their negative attitude is up to you. You can't control your coworkers, but you can control you. And that goes for them with their bad behaviors too. Like, if they show up late every day, does that mean it's okay for you to show up late? Or it's not fair because so-and-so shows up late every day? You're in control of you. And you showing up every day is the only thing that's important. Just because someone else is getting away with something that you feel isn't fair, it's still up to you to abide by your set of standards. If they say, I know, you guys know I throw my kids under the bus all the time. My son came back and was very upset because a couple of his coworkers were allowed to wear hoodies to work. They weren't getting yelled at or written up for it. And he didn't really want to wear a hoodie, but he was just upset because they got away with it and he couldn't. Who needs to change their attitude? My son had to change his attitude. Doesn't matter what anybody else is getting away with. That's up to the managers to deal with. You need to do what's right for you. And if they say you don't wear a hoodie to work, you don't wear a hoodie to work, period. That's the rule. I'm using rules a lot today. Sorry about that. Punctuality. Who gets to control that one? That is 100% on you. You making sure that you have enough time to get yourself to where you need to be is your responsibility. Now, some things are variables with this, and this is one of the reasons we talk about that 15 minutes of you time before work. If somebody is going to give you a ride and they know you have to be there at 11, say, no, I need to be there at 10:45. You let them know, nope, my time to be at work is 10:45. This is when I need to be there. If you're not in control of your transportation, does your punctuality fluctuate? Yeah, it does. But you getting yourself ready, that is your responsibility. That means maybe taking a shower the night before instead of in the morning so you're not fighting with all of your brothers and sisters and the cat to get in the shower. And making sure that you have more than one uniform so that you have one clean and one that can be in the wash and not depending on somebody else to do the wash all the time. It's your responsibility to get that uniform ready. Having all your stuff in one place, really, really important. So you have your full uniform hanging up, you have your shoes that you're going to wear, you have your socks, your name tag, all those things that you're normally running around the house. Oh my gosh, where did I do with this? Have it all in one place. One thing I recommend is having a basket that when you walk in the door, your name tag, your cell phone, and if you drive, your keys or your house keys go into that basket. Nobody else touches it. You throw everything in there, and that way, when you're looking for those things at the last second before you're running out the door, you know where they are. Now, if my keys aren't in my purse, I have no idea where they are. They could be anywhere. But that's my go-to place. I put my keys directly in my purse as soon as I get done using them, and that way I always know where they are. Does it mean that it happens 100% of the time? No, but we want to try and make this as simple as possible. Your uniforms. Do you have control over what the uniform is? No, absolutely not. But you have control of what your uniform looks like for work. Again, if you're working in food service, it's imperative that every night you go home, those uniforms get washed every night. And if that means you have to hand wash them because your grandma already did all the laundry, you hand wash them so that they're clean for the next time you go in. Going into work with a dirty, wrinkled uniform is not professional. If your boss says that the uniform, you have to tuck your shirt in, and you don't really want to tuck your shirt in, that's the uniform. They have the right to tell you exactly how to wear your uniform. If they want your neck buttoned up all the way to the top, you button it all the way to the top. If you need to have your hair up in a ponytail or off your face, you need to do that. The employer absolutely has the right to dictate what your uniform looks like. Now, we've talked about this in the past too, things like tattoos at work. People have the right to ask to have you cover them. And one of the jobs that I worked at, they did not want tattoos visible. So I had to wear either long sleeves all day, or I improvised and I had a covering that would cover up the tattoos. It is the employer's right to dictate what is seen and what isn't seen. And that goes with piercings and things like that too. So keep in mind that that isn't something that we can control, but you can control how your uniform works. One of the things with a uniform that really helps is making sure that you get more than one. Now, in the past, employers were able to provide a lot of uniforms for you. If they're only providing, sometimes places will only provide one uniform, and then if you want any more, you need to buy them on your own. That's an expense that's work expense. It's worth it to have that second uniform so that you're not up at midnight washing your uniform that you just wore this day. Having 2 to 3 that's ideal. If you're working just a couple of days a week, 2 is going to get you by. But if you're working 3 or 4 days a week, it might be worth it to get a couple. Same thing with shoes. If you are working in an environment where your shoes get yucky, you want to make sure you have a backup pair. Certain places require you to wear certain types of shoes. Here we are not allowed to wear open-toed shoes. A lot of restaurants you have to wear a shoe with a no-skid bottom, and those shoes sometimes are hard to find. So if you find one pair that fits you and you like them, try and get 2. And that's a work expense, and it can wait until you get your first paycheck. But then you know if you wind up getting a whole vat of chicken grease dumped on your shoes the night before and you can't clean them and they're disgusting, you have that extra pair of shoes so you're not showing up with something that's not appropriate the next day. So those things are you have a lot of control over. How about illness? Illness is one of those that's kind of in the middle here. Can you control when you get sick? No, not really. But can you control what you're doing to make sure you're not getting sick? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with COVID going on, we're much more aware of what we need to do You guys also know, we've talked about it a million times, if you have a fever or if you are throwing up, you do not go to work. Anything that is contagious, you do not go to work. And you let your employer know as soon as you know you're contagious that you can't show up for that shift. You need to be home with whatever illness you have that is contagious. If it's something that you decided to stay up all night playing video games and you're exhausted and you really don't want to go to work because you're really tired, nope. That's not an excuse. You need to go to work and you need to suck it up and do your job. You created that. So this is where we have some influence over this. Eating the right foods, getting enough sleep, washing your hands, wearing a mask when you need to wear a mask, taking all of those precautions, that's giving you the control over the illness. If your brother or sister get sick and you catch it, you really can't control that because you live in the same place. But all of the other parts of it, you can control. So that's one of those gray areas. Now there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm sure that you can come up with that deal with work and what we have control over and what we don't. This is definitely something that I would talk with your teachers about and fill this in for yourselves. We're going to make one of these for all of you, and you get to put your stuff that you're concerned about into this circle. That's it for this, and I'll see you next time.